I'm sure there's probably been times in history that are as interesting as the times we are currently living in. But not in my lifetime, I'll tell you. We've got the COVID scamdemic. We've got the technocrats trying to implement their fourth industrial revolution, Great Reset, New World Order. And we've got, I believe, the attempt at a deep state coup, possibly military coup, happening right now in real time. And in today's video, I'm going to go through some of the things that are out there that point towards this. Two of them are these two Washington Post articles. Technology once used to combat ISIS propaganda is enlisted by Democratic group to counter Trump's coronavirus messaging from May 1st, 2020. And this is military-grade DARPA-produced technology and techniques are going to be used against the American people, specifically against the sitting president. I mean, that's crazy. That's very extreme. And then we've got this thing, the Transition Integrity Project. So this group of people, the Transition Integrity Project, is basically saying no matter what happens on election 2020, we are going to do everything we can, encourage the military to step in order to ensure that Trump does not take the presidency. These two things, in my opinion, constitute rebellion, an attempted coup d'etat, treason. It's just out in the open, in my own opinion. That's what I think. So in this video, I'm going to go through some evidence for that. I'm going to show you what's happening. I want to direct you to other people who have written about this or talked about this. And I'm specifically going to focus in the second half on a retired Judge Advocate General, JAG, Colonel from the U.S. military. He's retired now, named Richard Black, and he put out a 10-minute warning about what he has observed and what he sees happening and how dangerous he thinks it is, okay? So this is a serious matter. It's hard to even do this video because I know I can't do it justice. But I want to show you the basics. So let's start with the one Washington Post article about the propaganda tactics they're going to use to counter the president's message supposedly on coronavirus, but it could be about anything when you think about it. So it opens, I'll just read some of it. A new Democratic-aligned political action committee advised by retired Army General Stanley McChrystal, the former head of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, is planning to deploy technology originally developed to counter Islamic State propaganda in service of a domestic goal to combat online efforts to promote President Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, let me just stop for a second. You remember Event 201? This was the coronavirus pandemic planning exercise that happened in October 2019, and then surprise, we have an actual coronavirus pandemic. Well, one of their things they said they wanted to do, in fact, I watched their videos of this event. The main thing they wanted to focus on was gaining control of communications so that they could put all of their messaging out and they could prevent messaging that contradicted them from reaching the public. This is what one of their main focuses. Here's a little clip of them all talking about a tactic called flood the zone.
A couple of strategies that are available to us, one of which is the flood strategy.
And flooding good information.
Flood the zone.
Flood.
A manifestation of flood.
Flood good information.
Flood the zone.
So flood the zone is to recruit trusted voices, which are influencers in all walks of life. CEOs, the sports world, the entertainment world, online, journalists, other politicians, all religious leaders, all kinds of voices to repeat their talking points. All right, so that's what basically we're looking at here is that in action. The trusted voices are going to be deployed to combat and counter Trump's everything he does about coronavirus. The group is called Defeat Disinfo. It will use artificial intelligence and network analysis to map discussion of the president's claims on social media. It will seek to intervene by identifying the most popular counter-narratives and boosting them through a network of more than 3.4 million influencers across the country, in some cases paying users with large followings to take sides against the president. Okay, a network of three to four? Does it say 3.4? I can't even read it. Million influencers across the country, in some cases paying users with large followings to take sides against the president. And down here it talks about how this technology was developed by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project. So the American taxpayer paid for this to be developed. It was used in the theater of war to propagandize the enemies. And now that's being brought over to the United States to do the exact same thing against the American people. And they are paying people, they say right there, to take sides against the president. And obviously they're doing this in more than just the area of coronavirus. This is the battlefield. We're in a war. It's an information war. It is raging. And they have all of the usual suspects, the oligarchs, the billionaires. They have them on their side. They have their money. They have their support. So Defeat Disinfo, here's its website. If you Google it, this is what you get. This is what you get. Defeat Disinfo. Join the digital front line in the fight against Trump's disinformation. And their homepage says, Trump's lies about Joe Biden and COVID-19 threaten our society. Republicans and Russians weaponize these lies to divide the nations. The big tech companies can't or won't help. It's up to us to act. Defeat Trump in 2020. We must defeat disinformation. Join us. Join our network of more than 3.4 million influencers. And look, as I've covered a million times, this is by far not the only outfit out there doing that. By far not the only one. I mean, from 2011, there's a story about HB Gary and their high-volume astroturfing technology, which was built by the federal government. Could it be that Defeat Disinfo is using this very technology? Because honestly, ask yourself, where are they getting 3.4 million people to do this? Many of them for free? Could they actually be using persona management software to simplify the process of pretending to be several people at once online in order to simulate widespread support for a point of view? It could be that. But there's also Crestview Strategy, very real company in Canada that claims to do exactly what Defeat Disinfo does. There's Storyful in Ireland that claims to do exactly what Defeat Disinfo does. This is the business of the millennium. Fake news, fake influencers, lies, and more lies. Here's one of the lying liars right now, one of the influencers that perhaps one of these companies is paying, Axios. Axios is seeding the narrative that they want, which is this whole notion that they have to stage a coup at the election time. Otherwise, Trump will not concede the election. Otherwise, Trump will not accept a loss. This is their story. Axios says a top Democratic data firm, Hawkfish, warns that it's highly likely that Trump will appear to be way ahead on election night, but could ultimately lose when all the votes are counted in the ensuing days and weeks. This is their talking point. Even if Trump seems to have won by a landslide, it might not be the case. We got to have days and weeks afterwards to collect all the mail-in ballots and to retabulate and to recalculate. And if you notice, Axios tweeted this, but it's actually data from another company called Hawkfish. And the article that it's in is from a Bloomberg group. 3 different outfits, all taking the one story and amplifying it. Here's MSNBC with an article. Hillary Clinton says Biden should not concede the election under any circumstances. Under any circumstances. What does that mean? Even if it looks like Trump wins. See, Axios lines it up. It's highly likely that Trump will appear to be way ahead on election night. But Hillary and a whole bunch of other politicos and apparatchik come out and say, Biden, no matter what happens, don't concede. This should scare everybody. And it should really doubly scare everybody when we look at this group, the Transition Integrity Project, when they write about their gaming exercise that they held. It's exactly like Event 201. They gamed out all the scenarios. And in any case, they came up with the conclusion that they should not admit defeat. What does that tell you? If Biden loses, they won't admit defeat. If it's tight, they won't admit defeat. They say the only scenario they're happy with is if Biden wins by a landslide and Trump leaves. But they even say they doubt Trump will leave if Biden wins. They're going that far. They're not waiting to see what happens. And right in their Washington Post article, they stress the notion that the media has an important role to play. Responsible outlets can help educate the public about the possibility, indeed the likelihood, that there won't be a clear winner on election night because an accurate count may take weeks, given the large number of mail-in ballots expected in this unprecedented mid-pandemic election. Journalists can also help people understand that voter fraud is extraordinarily rare, and in particular, there's nothing nefarious about voting by mail. Social media platforms can commit to protecting the democratic process by rapidly removing or correcting false statements spread by foreign or domestic disinformation campaigns. Unreal. It's what they're doing is telling you in plain terms that they're going to steal the election. And if anybody out there says that this was theft, or that they saw shenanigans at the polling place, or that they don't agree with this, or that they think Trump should not concede or investigations need to be done, that those posts should be removed. Anyway, I'm going on far too long about this. You should go watch my friend, Frank, over at Quite Frankly, because he does a great job of going through articles that are written about this, like this one here. The Coming Coup by Michael Anton at American Mind. As if 2020 were not insane enough already, we now have Democrats and their ruling class masters openly talking about staging a coup. You might have missed it, what with the riots, lockdowns, and other daily mayhem we're forced to endure in this most wretched year of my lifetime, but it's happening. It is happening, and it's quite concerning. I want to play you just a minute or two of Frank talking about what he's seen out there in the media, with the media playing this role of getting the public's mind ready for a coup, an actual theft of the election, of the presidency, the office of the presidency after the election, sometime before inauguration. This is just a short clip of Frank telling you what he's seen.
I wrote a few of these things on down, and you let me know if I missed anything. So let's talk about the telegraphing this year so far. We first got exaggerated after impeachment was done and gone, and that was a failure. We got exaggerated virus coverage. Wherever the president was standing, they were on the other side. Then we got devastating virus response. That is from local mayors and governors. Destroyed people's lives. Suppression of medical dissent. All right, from people within the medical community that just had a different opinion on treatment, on how respirators were being used, everything. Then we had suppression of cheap therapies. We had smear campaigns against HCQ and everything else. We had the gradual concern shown about the November election and the suggestion of the mail-in ballots. They were already starting that in April and May. Then we had Trump's fake war with the post office as a foundation for the election interference 2.0 narrative that's being built right now. Hillary Clinton's conditioning the public to accept that election night is a thing of the past. There is not going to be an election night. It's going to be like an election month. And publicly pleading with Joe Biden not to concede. Not until their friends at Perkins Coie do their worst. You'll probably have Mark Elias out there, the guy who delivered the dossier money to Glenn Simpson. The projection of a Trump landslide is the last thing that we have over here. This is from Axios and all the think tanks. Projection of Trump landslide being a mirage. That's the last bit of projection we have. That the result should be expected is that a gradual Biden victory will follow in the weeks that come after this mirage of a Trump landslide. And now we have congressmen and women in so-called trusted media musing about how Trump can be forcibly removed if he doesn't accept a seemingly preordained conclusion that he will be losing to a brain-dead man from Delaware. This is how the projection has been. Those are just some things I wrote down over here. All right, so you can send it on more. And what I have over here now is this American Minds article that we got to read. All right, here it is, The Coming Coup. It's not that long. Let's do it.
And yeah, as I said, right after that, he goes and he goes through this whole article and he gives his thoughts on it. And Frank is just so... he just puts things in such a way that makes you feel normal and makes you understand that there's a lot of other people out there who can see right through this garbage. He's so great at that. I love Frank. Go visit him and subscribe if you haven't. And, you know, Facebook is getting in on this action. Mark Zuckerberg came out and said what we and the other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there is nothing illegitimate about this election taking several days or weeks to make sure all the votes are counted. That's not his job, but of course, we are in an information war. He is one of the oligarchs. His company funds all these fact-checking and journalist outfits and defeat disinfo and all those types of outfits that are bringing you this constant barrage of propaganda, getting the public's mind ready to allow a military coup to take place. It's been an all-out war. Tucker Carlson is talking about why Silicon Valley is doing it all it can to help the Biden-Harris ticket in this video here. And he mentions another disinformation outlet, I'm going to call it, called Acronym, that I had never heard of before. This one funded by Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn. Ben Swan. Do you know Ben Swan? He's doing excellent work, as he always has. He talked about Facebook fact checkers being bought and paid for by the Gates Foundation. Really Graceful has done exposés on fact checking, as has Corbett Report, and as have I in different times throughout my YouTube career. Like Praying Medic says here, as the press and military-industrial complex conspire to damage Trump's reputation, reporters want you to know there is no deep state, and the notion that they're trying to remove Trump from office is a conspiracy theory. They're all in it because this is a globalist takeover. The oligarchs have almost all the money now. It's very, very easy for them to dominate in the information sphere. They've bought up all the outfits, and as they've admitted, they are paying 3.4 million influencers to counter every single thing Trump says. I just showed you. And that's just one company. That's one among hundreds. If you hear nothing else from this video, I want you to listen to the next 10 minutes of, I'm just going to play this whole video for you, of retired Colonel Richard Black talking about the danger that he sees out there that points towards a military coup. And he, in my opinion, doesn't go near far enough in what he thinks should happen to counter this. And he also seems to have misplaced faith in Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who, if you don't know this, was given an award for lobbying. He was a top lobbyist from 2010 to 2017. He lobbied for Raytheon. So these guys, these generals that he mentions in this piece, in his video, they are all suspect. Ties to the military industrial complex or other things. I may go through that video again and show you what I mean when I say that. But for now, this is long enough. I need you to get the message. Just listen to Colonel Black and what he tells you.
My topic is, do we risk a military coup? By way of background, let me just say that I'm Colonel Richard H. Black, retired. I was a career judge advocate officer and former chief of the Army Criminal Law Division, Office of the Judge Advocate General at the Pentagon. I played a key role in deploying the 7th Infantry Division to quell the 1992 LA riots. Let me give you a little background to start with. The Insurrection Act is among the most fundamental of all federal laws. First enacted in 1807, it has been used repeatedly to carry out government's most elemental responsibility, that of ensuring domestic tranquility. The preamble to the Constitution lists the task of ensuring domestic tranquility among the 5 purposes for which the Constitution of the United States was created. Nothing is more vital than protecting the physical safety of Americans. Military officials are sworn to defend the nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. On June the 4th, 2020, the prominent publication Foreign Policy published a morning brief entitled "Generals Denounce Trump's Protest Crackdown Plan." The brief critiqued the president's threat to invoke the Insurrection Act and subtly disparaged its relevance as a 2-century-old law. But the law empowering the president to quell unrest using military force has been invoked 22 times since its first use in 1808. Presidents Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses Grant, Rutherford Hayes, Grover Cleveland, Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, George H.W. Bush have each invoked the Insurrection Act to do such things as stop riots, enforce desegregation orders and military disturbances, and to quell labor disputes. Defense One, a military online publication, reported that 2 retired lieutenant colonels, John Nagel and Paul Yingling, have written an open letter to General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, urging him to employ military force to remove the President of the United States if he does not leave office on January 20th, 2021. They wrote, if Donald Trump refuses to leave office at the expiration of his constitutional term, the United States military must remove him by force, and you must give that order. Now, it should go without saying that it is impermissible for retired officers to urge a coup to overthrow the government of the United States. And since President Trump has never hinted that he would not follow the constitutional plan for succession of power, it is doubly disturbing that their call for military insurrection is based on fanciful conjecture about what the president might or might not do under various scenarios. The idea of a military takeover has been percolating for some time. As early as August 18, 2020, Defense One had published an article by Thomas Crosby entitled 6 Scenarios for Military Intervention After January 20th. After discussing the rather implausible scenarios, its author stated, coups are nasty things, and discussing them in the American context is deeply distasteful. Nevertheless, facing those scenarios may help us understand the real dynamics general and flag officers will be forced to navigate in the coming months. The author appears to suggest that the generals must begin to contemplate overthrowing the president on or after January 20th, 2021, if the situation warrants doing so. Now, that lieutenant colonel's letter might be dismissed as delusional. However, other factors, including its prominent placement in Defense One, suggest that others are acting in concert to undermine the authority of the president as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. The military, quite frankly, is becoming dangerously politicized. General James Mattis is the former Secretary of Defense who resigned in 2018 in a successful effort to block the president from withdrawing troops from Syria. On June 3rd, 2020, he issued a frightening denunciation of the president. After praising the rioters for their wholesome and unifying demands, he denounced the president in scathing terms, and he said, "We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years without mature leadership." He said, "We can unite without him," drawing on the strengths inherent in our civil society. During the week of June the 7th, 2020, retired General Colin Powell led other retired military leaders in blasting the commander-in-chief. Powell praised those officers who had spoken out against the president in recent days. General Powell echoed General Mattis's denunciations of the president, saying that he agreed that Trump is the first president in his lifetime who is not trying to unite the country. As an aside, I would point out that it was General Colin Powell who famously waved a test tube mimicking sarin gas, deceitfully urging the UN to support the invasion of Iraq. His guile and deception led to the 2003 invasion of Iraq and the killing of 2 million innocent people. In a veiled swipe at the American electorate, retired Marine General John Kelly said, "I think we need to look harder at who we elect." Retired Marine Corps General John Allen arrogantly claimed, "Donald Trump isn't religious. He has no need for religion and doesn't care about the devout, except insofar as they serve his political needs." The declarations of these military officials appear calculated to undermine the president's authority to quell domestic disturbances. By suggesting that invoking the Insurrection Act is illicit, and by downplaying widespread urban terror, these officials have placed their imprimatur on the violent criminal behavior. Article 88 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice prohibits retired officers from using contemptuous words against the President of the United States. It is difficult to justify legally many of these officers' comments. In some instances, the contemptuousness toward the president appears to violate criminal law. Taken together, the coordinated release of scathing remarks by senior officials, coupled with publication of a letter advocating a military coup, suggests a deep sickness within the Pentagon and within our constitutional structure. To my knowledge, neither the Secretary of Defense nor the service chiefs have taken action against the widely publicized talk of military insurrection. General Milley should refer the colonel's letter to the legal counsel for the Joint Chiefs to determine whether its publication violates the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Beyond that, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper has an obligation to issue a grave warning against officers both active and retired who seek to overthrow the President of the United States using armed force. Those retired officers who have published contemptuous words against the President of the United States should be issued permanent letters of reprimand cautioning against criminal violations of Article 88 UCMJ. They should be reminded that Article 88 applies to retired officers and that the law was enacted because undermining the authority of the Commander-in-Chief presents a clear and present danger to the survival of our republic. The Department of Defense must act resolutely to restore public confidence. Americans deserve assurance that our nation will not be overthrown by a military cabal.
Taken all together, what we've got is General Stanley McChrystal advising that group called Defeat Disinfo, which is paying 3.4 million influencers, I guess not all of them are paid, to go out and contradict everything Trump says. I mean, that is what they say they're doing. Paying users with large followings to take sides against the president. It couldn't be more blatant than that. And then you've got the Transition Integrity Project coming out and saying that no matter what happens on the election night, they are going to try to seize the presidency. That's what they say. And while they're saying that, they are brainwashing the public into believing that it is Trump who is planning to stage a coup, while the evidence is clear it's them planning the coup. And then finally, we've got all these retired generals planting seeds that they won't support the president if he wants to use the Insurrection Act to quell rioting, or that they might possibly go into the Oval Office on January 20th, 2021 and forcibly remove the president if Trump wins. All of this adds up to some really dangerous, in my opinion, illegal and treasonous behavior and plans right out in the open. The good news is they still cannot convince the majority of the public as to their lies. They still can't. All this noise you hear in the press, all these social media accounts that you see seeming to believe the deep state side, they are fake, or they are paid, or they are in the cabal themselves. The people's voices, the people's minds, just instinctively understand the truth. Free people understand other free people. We can tell when something is truthful or not, but that's not stopping them. In fact, that's spurring them on. That's why they're doubling down. They're going crazy. Adam Schiff's come out with another whistleblower. It's going to be nonstop. Nuts. You know, I don't have a positive wrap up for you on this. because the fact is they do own so much of the media. They do control so much of the narrative. They've got the teachers' unions on their side. They've just said that the postal unions and other union leaders are going to be helping with the election policy or something for the vote by mail stuff. I don't know. And COVID rage is on. Second lockdown is being dangled in front of us all. The vaccine's coming at us at warp speed, so we hear. We just got to keep fighting. And that means really it's up here. It's in here. This is a battle for the hearts and minds. And mostly, I just want us all to stay sane and stay true. I'm going to stop talking, everybody. Thanks very much for listening. Until next time. Wait! If you want to contribute to my PayPal, please see the description box below. I have been getting a smaller volume of mail lately, and I have to wonder if that has anything to do with these reports of bags of mail just being dumped out of the postal trucks onto the street and in garbage dumps. There's reports of that happening. So, I don't know. It's just a war on every front. If you want to send me something, my P.O. box is available on my website, amazingpolily.net. Check for my paypal.me address in the description box. Check for references there as well. And follow me on BitChute in case they delete my YouTube channel someday, which they might. Who knows? Until next time, everybody, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you again. Peace out.